Adam with Splendid Sports here, joined by Dylan from Double D Vintage Baseball Cards. How you doing, Dylan?
Very good. Thanks for having me on, Adam. Really excited about tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I asked Dylan to come on with me. I started doing this thing back in June where I am a Card Ladder subscriber. Card Ladder, if you're not familiar with anyone out there, it's a data tool online similar to vintage card prices, market movers. Card Ladder is the one that I've been using for a little bit, and I think it's got some cool data in it, some cool information. So we're going to be talking vintage card market pricing, give our opinions on a few things, do some shout outs. I got some stuff to share, a couple sales from the previous month that I wanted to share with Dylan and get his thoughts on. So just general market stuff. We don't talk about this all the time, but I try to do at least on a monthly basis to not only kind of look at the index that I built with vintage sports cards, but even on like today, we're going to be looking real high level stuff as far as like overall vintage market and look back in time too, to see where we were and where we are now and maybe what we think the future might hold. But first, one of the reasons, other than that I just love talking to him, that I wanted to get Dylan on with me here is because not only does he have an awesome vintage channel on YouTube, but Dylan, you've had an eBay store since, is it 2001? Is that what the year was?
I want to say 99 or 2000. eBay, that's been, I started, whatever it says on eBay, I can't remember. It's either 99 to 2001, one of those years.
I would love to hear, like, because you've, through the chart that I'm going to show, you've been selling on eBay since through that whole period up till now. I mean, you sold, I think it was like, when I looked at your store, it's like close to 7,000 items since you've been on there. 100% feedback rating, which is crazy that you sold that many things without any negative feedback. So I wanted to get just maybe a history on it and some of the things maybe you've picked up from it from like a market standpoint. I'm sure it's been crazy over the last couple of years running a store like that.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad, because I kind of wanted to narrow it down and see where we wanted to go with this, because I could talk for like 6 hours on none of it. So my eBay thing has, my entire life, I've talked about this before, I've always wanted, my dream has always been to sell baseball cards for a living. And I'm a collector, but the way I collect is sell other cards and make money off them. So all through the years, I have been buying and selling cards. I went through the whole graded thing when it first started and was buying and selling those cards on eBay. And there was one year where, I had astronomical amount of sales. And then I got in trouble with my whole credit card thing. And I talked about in the past, like, I owed money and I didn't know, like, I should just wait a month until the sales come in. Took care of all that. Fast forwarded a few years, like, was still buying and selling on eBay, but it wasn't like, okay, I gotta get a real job and like do things. So after that situation around 2006 till 2013, I was buying boxes and packs and still collecting vintage, but I was buying this stuff with a buddy of mine, and we were reselling everything we pulled out of those packs, or I was on my eBay, my cards, and he was doing it on his. And what we did was I would sell everything that was worth money at the time. So say, like, bring it up to today's standards, or Fernando Tatis. It was 2016 Bowman Chrome and I pulled a Fernando Tatis, I would put it on eBay and sell it instantly. So anyone that was a high dollar rookie card, high dollar autograph, insert, I sold it right away. And I kept all the stuff that was worth $1 or less. And I didn't sell any of it. Commons to all the rookies that didn't mean anything. That was like the game plan my whole life. Like, I'm going to make money this. I just know it. This is the way to do it. Sell the stuff that's hot because everyone's buying it. Keep the stuff that's not worth anything. Did that for a decade. Okay. Fast forward all the way till 5 years ago when I moved over to Hawaii, and I go, okay, well, I was done with my job. I had a job for 20 years on the mainland. I ran a company, did very well. And I told I told many people this. I told my dad, like, dude, if I can't figure out how to make money on selling sports cards, then I failed in life, because that's what I've always wanted to do. Okay, I changed my motto on that because I don't need to do that anymore. I found other avenues of revenue and like fun businesses that I've created, and with my wife's thing, I'm still gonna go on that prospect later in life. But so basically, fast forward 5 years ago, I came over into Hawaii, and I said, I'm gonna sell all my commons. And so what I did was I started taking pictures. So I organized my cards, and I had six 5,000 count boxes at least of, from 2006 to 2011, something like that, 2010 boxes. And so I organized them, and I started listing common cards. So I'd go through sets. So each listing, when you did eBay originally, when I started back then in 5 years, or when I started listing these commons, you had to have a subscription to eBay if you're familiar with it. And they give you, back then it was only 1,000 listings a month I could use. So my motto was, okay, I'm going to list each card. And within that listing, I had 10 of them available, or 20, or, doubles. So I tried to get all the ones that I had multiple copies of up there first, because that's how eBay worked. And so I started selling them, and I had a price point of like $1.39, I think was my cheapest card back then. I was making like a quarter a card after everything. And this is before they had tracking available for shipping. So like I was always competing with Burbank sports cards, which is ridiculous. They're like massive. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna shoot for the best. So if I didn't know the price of a card, I'd look at what's Burbank selling it for. And I go, okay, well, I'm gonna sell it for a little cheaper, 50 cents cheaper, and they charge $4 for shipping. So you got to buy a lot of cards with them, and I'm always a free shipping guy. So 5 years ago, started doing that, and I started selling stuff, and it takes forever to gain like a lot of listings, right? Like 1,000 listings, taking a picture of everyone front and back, and so on and so on. That's why I wanted to do like one listing is worth 10 cards. So I had this game plan in my head. I started finding some really high dollar cards. Like I found a whole bunch, little offshoot. I found a whole bunch of Clayton Kershaw rookies. Like I found $1,000 Chrome update rookie that I had in the pack. It was open pack, but I just shoved the card tag in there. And I found like 8 of his other update rookies. Oh, I was just like, wow, this is insane. These were $100 each. And then that one I sold for $900. So it really got my blood pumping. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm gonna keep going down this path. Then the bubble hit, or I guess it wasn't a bubble yet. The pandemic hit, and the sales just started taking off. And all that time from when I started selling commons, like in 2008, selling all the cards that were hot right out of the packs, I learned what sells. And so in the meantime, during that whole way, I was buying like loads of Mickey Mantle cards, common cards, which I call them, ones that you collect.
Yeah.
I was buying Willie Mays cards. So I had thousands and thousands of their insert cards. So once that pandemic hit, that stuff started just like steamrolling. And I started selling $1,000 in common cards every single month. And it's still at that pace. So it's really fun to see. Everyone thinks the market just like peaked then. My sales have just barely kind of gone like this. It was crazy. I was packing out like 20 cards a day. But now I'm like about, 8 cards to, 4 to 8 cards a day. And it's just started just kind of steamrolling. And I take all that money that I sell my common cards in, and I turn it into vintage. So that's where my budget comes in with my vintage. So anyone who sees me buy like a big card, or I have a bunch of vintage cards, this isn't just money that I went to work for and got it. This is from my baseball cards. So for the taxman reasons, it's another reason for me. Anytime I sell a card, I have to spend that much money, because this is a hobby for me, and it's taxman knows about it, and I have to make sure that I spend more than what's coming in, and I have my collections to prove it. So it's been fun to see that there's the market's still booming. I'm selling cards left and right. I still have an average of about $800 in sales every month on common cards. I consider common. Um, Maybe some people don't. Maybe you don't because you got Mickey Mantle cards that you're buying from me. But they're commons in my mind. So
Post-playing days, mantles. Yes.
that's where
Right.
I'm going with the whole thing, and it's been really fun to see. So that's
Well,
kind of my eBay deal right now.
yeah, and that's why if on the screen here, this is from Card Ladder, and Card Ladder has a bunch of indexes. Again, it's never going to be a perfect, illustration of the market or anything, but it does paint a really interesting picture. This is kind of what you were just talking about with what you noticed in your eBay store. So this is not new data, but this is something we want to talk vintage. But I want to
Yeah.
compare it to this is the Card Ladder 50. So this is a 50 hand selected cards that Card Ladder feels best represent the card market. So it's a mix. It's some vintage, but it's a lot of modern, ultra modern, different sports, and so it gives a good picture of things were just flat, humming along. This is back to 2004, 2004. Flat, a little bump here, but flat, little rise. And then there's that pandemic boom that you said you noticed in your store in the first, end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And then boom, straight down after that, and then it's been kind of fluctuating. It's going down even further now. So it's still a lot higher than it used to be as far as the overall market, but there was definitely that peak, as you can see, and then has come down and has not even sniffed the level that it hit for a brief period of time there. But what I want to show is that's the overall index. There's also a vintage index, and I think this paints a really good picture. So same thing, flat for many, many, many years. Since 2003, the vintage one goes back. No, pretty much. And I noticed this too when I was buying cards off eBay in 2012, 13, 14. It felt like the prices were always about the same from year to year of the cards that I was buying, graded cards. It would go up a little bit, but pretty flat. A little rise here in 2017, then flat for a while. And then you get that peak. Now the difference is you have a peak that's not as severe, and then it goes down a little bit as the market kind of tanked. Vintage went down a little bit, but look now, since then it has gone even higher than the peak in early 2021. It's at levels that vintage has never seen, not even in the pandemic boom. And it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great. I love that chart. I mean, we all knew back, as collecting for as long as we have, there was such a stagnant period. But seeing a chart like this, for me, it just affirms my love for baseball cards isn't just. It's exciting to see them worth money. I mean, I printed out a chart also to see inflation, because I'm super crazy weird like that, and I've always been into this stuff, and I'm just are baseball cards a waste of my money my whole life? I'm like, are these things really going to be worth money? I mean, I just love them, so I just kept buying them. But man, when I look at the inflation rate, it's in 2004 to now, it's gone up 56%. So a dollar back then is now worth $1.57 now, or that's what it is. So baseball cards crushed it. I could have just, instead of holding on to money, I should just kept buying more baseball cards. I mean, I did, but it feels really good. And anyone who says it doesn't feel good that cards have gone up, I mean, I don't know who they're lying to, but I love it. I'm super stoked on it, and I think it's awesome, and it's an affirmation for me to just keep collecting. It's so fun, and I think that I'm like a guy that during the peak of, I don't know what you were buying during the mega peak, but during that mega peak, I was going back and looking at prices from 2015, 2010, and buying cards that had not moved. And I was all nervous because I had friends going, man, are you killing it? And I'm like, I mean, I'm selling cards on eBay, but are your cards worth $1 million? I'm like, because they all know I collect. No, they haven't even moved yet. Our vintage stuff was so far behind that huge peak, unless you had the high end vintage stuff. They did hit that peak, but my stuff was still pretty slow, but it had that rise, and it's fun to see. And I look back at cards that I was spending $20 on, and now they're worth $40. And I didn't buy $1,000 card back then, and it's worth 30,000 like you bought that one, the Larry Bird. I didn't have that. I didn't do that. And going forward, is that going to continue? I don't think so. I think there's going to be a gap filled in between. I don't care if I'm right or wrong, but what are your thoughts on like the PSA 8s and 9s of the world? Are they going to continue to rise, or are the other ones going to play catch up?
Well, I think there's a couple points that I wanted to make. So I wanted to show the data first, and then throw out some opinions and maybe get some feedback from you, and also anyone who watches that wants to comment. But one of the things that I really think is happening, because I'm seeing it, is, we saw that spike, right? During that spike in early 2021, there was a lot of people, and it's mostly basketball and football. Mostly people were spending crazy amounts of money on Kobe Bryant and LeBron and Michael Jordan and Patrick Mahomes, right? So there was tons of money, and if you look at those indexes, those players, they have many, like there's Kobe Bryant cards, that PSA 10 rookie cards, that have declined 80% from that peak. So we're talking people that spent a lot of money. And what's going on, in my opinion, is not only is it guys like us who, our age bracket, who are trying to buy the cards that we've always wanted, the vintage cards, but it's guys that who are moving from that. They got killed, right, in basketball and football and modern stuff, and they're moving over to vintage. And a lot of them don't know a ton about it, but they're looking for something that they feel like will be less severe as far as the swings, and they're looking for maybe a safer play, but they're looking for something also that would go up. So it's going to be an interesting period moving forward, because even just some of the bigger YouTube channels, some of the bigger podcasts, if you look at what they were documenting as far as what they were buying last year and what they were talking about versus what they're talking about now, vintage is way more on their radar. They're talking about buying Mickey Mantles. They're talking about buying, mostly baseball. Honestly, the basketball and the football haven't really done that much compared to baseball. Vintage baseball, I'm seeing guys who only collected football cards or only collected basketball cards now buying Mickey Mantle cards. And, I don't know what their intentions are with it. I don't think they're like at heart Mickey Mantle fans or fans of vintage baseball cards. There's a lot of people that are looking at those and going, I could put a good amount of money into these and, in a year sell them, or, so that I don't know, but it looks to me like there's going to be some of that market stuff that we saw with other things. I hope not, but we might see some volatility going on here in the near future because of the new entrants into the vintage market it's really happening now. So that's one thing I noticed, and it's I don't know what to make of it. I just know that it's probably going to be one shout out too is I watched an interview yesterday. I think you watched it too, which was Dr. Beckett with baseball card collector Mike. And as anything I ever listened to with Dr. Beckett, I listen to it very carefully and I get a lot from it and I learn from it. One of the things he said was he would like to see steady growth, but he doesn't think that's possible in the current market. He sees, he's optimistic about, vintage going up in the long run further, but he doesn't expect it to be a smooth ride like it maybe has been, where it goes up, 8-10% a year. And I kind of agree with that based on what I'm seeing as far as the people that are now getting into vintage that are going to be throwing some big money around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. And what I really liked what I agreed with what he said was he's buying the low dollar stuff and you have less risk. Like
Mm-hmm.
you could buy $1,000 worth of $50 cards and not feel bad if that $1,000 becomes worth 500 because you have more of the cards. I mean, that's how mine works. Rather than having a $1,000 card that gets cut in half, and it's one card, and you're just like, whew, that was tough. But the chances of a $50 card getting cut to 25 is less, anyways. It's kind of like, I mean, it's like buying a high growth stock or a Pepsi or a Coca-Cola, and you're just, I'm still trying to focus like what your thoughts are on like the PSA 9s and the super rare stuff. Like, to me, it's like gonna be that super spike and spike down, and of course, it's gonna affect the lower end stuff. But the lower end stuff isn't that high already. Like, I feel like that stuff still has a long way to come up. A nice looking 4, to me, has a lot more room to move up than a PSA 9. But there's a lot of billionaires out there and guys with a lot of money that can make crazy stuff happen. So
yeah, it's two completely separate things, really. There's two. I mean, the people who are spending, they're looking for Mantle PSA 9s and Willie Mays and Hank Aaron PSA 9s. That's just that. There's going to be a lot of fluctuation there. That's kind of what I'm getting at too. Is the high end is like, for example, there was. I wanted to talk about a couple sales I noticed from last month that were in the cards that I was tracking. Just a couple examples. There was a PSA 9 Ozzie Smith rookie, 1979 Ozzie Smith. The PSA 9s, again, based on eye appeal, could go from anywhere from 2 to 4,000. I've seen 3,000 being kind of an average recently. Then there was a sale, PSA 9 of $15,000 last month on PWCC for for this card, five times or whatever that it normally sells for. And I looked at it, and it turned out it's how PWCC does the eye appeal ratings.
Yeah,
It's like
the E or
top
something.
5%. And that's a crazy card because there's literally, I think, only 5 PSA 10s of that rookie card. So it sells for hundreds of thousands of dollars in many cases. So that was probably someone making a play thinking, hey, I could maybe upgrade that to a 10, and then it's going to be an investment type thing. But those are the type of swings that I think we'll continue to see in some of these vintage cards in the high grades. People that are making plays, people thinking, oh, I'm gonna buy it for X and then sell it in the short term, which I don't love with that. I don't think that's the right mindset with vintage, but it's going to happen.
I agree 100% on that. It's going to happen. You know what was scary about the whole crash of the basketball card market and the baseball card, the modern stuff? I thought that would crush the whole industry. I was wrong about that. I thought, oh, vintage, we're done. We didn't even get to test the waters. I was like, man, these guys, obviously that was going to happen. In my mind, it was like, I was scared. I'm like, oh man, there it goes. Vintage. I'm like, man, well, bummer. Everyone's going to get out of the card market. Everyone's going to freak out. But you know what? As we've seen, all those guys, they took the heat, they took the loss, and they're still in the game, which
they're
blew
still
my
in the
mind.
game. And now, but here, to your point, I just want to show a couple player indexes of vintage baseball players. The storm that they've been able to weather. I mean, these guys, unbelievable. There's just nothing that can stop these guys. They're unbelievable. As far, I mean, the strength that I'm going to show the first one. Let's go, Mickey Mantle, of course, the king of the hobby. And just look at this.
That's good looking.
Just weathering the storm. Everyone else is crashing, and he just keeps going up. Same with. Let's go, Willie Mays. Willie Mays.
Beautiful.
Still
look at
climbing.
That jump Willie Mays had.
Oh, look at that.
That's crazy. That's bizarre. Wow. Maybe because he was trying to catch up. He's still not even close, but wow.
If that was a stock, people would be just like, unbelievable.
Amazon. Yeah. That's it.
Look at, but even guys like, I wanted to show Hank Aaron.
Yeah, I'd like to see his.
And this is an interesting one too because.
Oh wow! Okay, wow, he had a peak back then.
He had a peep. There was something going on there too in 2016. I heard something about that. I know like guys like Roberto Clemente too had crazy spikes like that. There
Look
was a
at
few
that.
huge sales back in 2016 that really spiked it.
It looks
But
like the exact same spike right there. It's so weird looking.
yeah, and look at this straight up. Now this is when he passed away. He passed
Oh
away
yeah,
in January 2021. So that coinciding with that boom anyway, it's like a straight line up.
yeah.
And but yeah, he went down, he came down, but now look, he's still climbing, still going. He's higher than he was even right after he passed away. And then just a couple other ones I wanted to show. Let's go Ted Williams. And I'm getting to a larger point here that I want to ask you
Ted
about.
Williams. There we go. I like this one. This is a steady Eddie right here.
Steady growth.
Yes.
But still a little spike there, but not as great, so but now he's just higher than he ever was, regardless of what's going on in the larger market. And then the last one I wanted to show, Stan Musial, who sometimes can be overlooked, even though he was just as great. But again, still steady rise, a couple peaks there. But like right now, we're at higher than even like when the overall card market was peaking. So
yeah, it's amazing. I like to see it. It feels right. I mean, this is the bread and butter, vintage baseball cards. That's what started cards, That's it.
So here's a question for you that I wanted to ask you. I want to give another shout out to a recent show interview or conversation that I watched.
I know where it's
going. There was one James on James Elite Hunters channel. He had John Mangini on, and there was, I think the title of the video was "Is Vintage Getting Its Due?" or something like that. And it was just a great conversation. Great conversation. I loved it. I watched the whole thing. But there was one part that I found very interesting. John Mangini, we all know him. He's just a treasure on YouTube. One of the best collectors. Unbelievable. But he said, John, if you watch this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard you say you're not predicting anything, but one of your fears is that right now, I'm going to bring this chart back up, as we can see. Vintage, and if you look at the chart, vintage is peaking right now, all time, even higher than when other things peak. But John fears that we might be, I think what he meant was, maybe you tell me how you took it, but I think he means that he's afraid that we might be at a peak, like a peak. You know what I mean? Looking back in the future, this could be the peak. Just based on, I don't know, I guess he thinks the age ranges of people that are buying vintage right now, he thinks it's kind of like a perfect storm. What do you think?
I mean, I have a different opinion. I have a completely different opinion than John. And John has way more knowledge on baseball cards and life and investing than I do. But my opinion is that I didn't grow up knowing who Mickey Mantle was. Like, I was never told about Mickey Mantle, who he was. I just gravitated towards vintage cards just because I just saw them and I just loved them. And these guys in the modern cards are definitely getting a taste of Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, regardless of what anyone thinks. When they open a pack, they're getting reprints. They're getting the 58 reprints. They're getting Topps Archives and all the different stuff. My nephew, he's like, I don't like Willie Mays. I don't like Mickey Mantle. But you know what? Give him, if he stays in baseball, give him 10 years, or when he's in high school, he's going to think about these players. And when an Albert Pujols comes along and hits 700 home runs, hopefully, it brings a conversation in. And the chart is like picking the peak of anything is impossible, right? And John can agree with that, I'm sure. It's impossible. And the peak of PSA 9s is going to be a different peak than my collector style collection, right? Like even below collector grade now. Like I barely even look at 5s in Willie Mays' and Mickey Mantles anymore. And I'm looking at 4s. Before I was looking at 7s when we were younger. It's like there's going to be different peaks within our hobby of the grades. That's my opinion. So whether he has that same opinion or not, I don't know if he's referring to the high-end market peaking or just vintage cards altogether peaking. my opinion is vintage cards are never going to go out of style. And they're going to be around in collectibles forever. And the next generation will come along and start. I'm big on tops and this, and he talks about the circulated cards. I love the circulated cards, and I love the cards that were in packs and wax packs in it. And so I always kind of like, I'd rather have 10 copies of one, tops card than, a card that's obscure, which he loves to collect. And maybe I'll go that path later. I don't know, but that's just my thoughts and my opinions. And, I could be 100% wrong and he could be 100% right. And we're still on the same page. We're just doing this for fun. And so that's my thoughts.
Yeah. And the bottom line is whether you could think one thing, you could think vintage cards are going to be worth way more forever in the future, or you could think maybe they're not, maybe you fear certain things, but the bottom line is it doesn't affect what you love. You could love something forever. And, I've had my, when I think about it, sometimes I'm an optimist, but I also can see the other side of it, but that doesn't affect, what I'm going to do. Regardless, I'm still going to be buying and collecting. And I think another great point that I heard, again, I've been enjoying a lot of these conversations I've been seeing on YouTube recently. Absolutely. Another thing Dr. Beckett said that really stuck in my head on that conversation with Mike Moynihan is he mentioned, because they talked about Fanatics, right? When Fanatics they're coming in and their goal is over the next period of years to add like 25% more collectors every year. That's a certain goal they have, right? And, I think a lot of people assume like, oh, well, they're just, they're focused on, they just want to make sure the new releases and so forth keep increasing in price or whatever. But Dr. Beckett made a great point, which was they need a legacy. Fanatics as a company to succeed needs the cards of the past to appreciate and value and not crash or not be worth less than they used to be, because it's an example of, hey, you should be investing or buying these cards now and collecting them, because look at what the cards of the past are doing and still doing. So it's something that they have, I think, a vested interest in whatever marketing they're going to do and promotion. I think it's not just going to be for new releases or current players. I think there's a lot of marketing they could do about the history of sports cards too, that would, expose some of these newer collectors that they might bring in to the past, and that they might want to collect a certain percentage, might make their way back to vintage, which would help that market too. So
yeah, I want to add something real fast. Like when I look back on the past, when I started getting into the vintage full on in 2099, something like that, if I knew what I knew now and had the confidence, I was always buying stocks. Like in high school, my uncle was a stockbroker for Merrill Lynch, so I gave him $4,000 when I was working in high school. I gave him $4,000 to invest in stocks for me. It was like 10 years later, and the stocks were worth a little less than what I gave him. And I'm just like, what? How is this even possible? How is this guy who knows everything about something worth less than, I might have the date exactly, not right. How is it worth less than what I gave him? At that moment is when I really started going into the stock thing and be like, dude, I could do better than this. In hindsight, seeing this, I wish I would have just bought baseball cards, because baseball cards are something that I don't want to sell, like the vintage stuff. I don't sell this stuff unless I don't like the card anymore, or like, oh, I don't like this about it, or I have another one. I don't sell the vintage stuff. So selling a stock is a lot easier than selling a baseball card. So I would be way more well off if I would have just bought baseball cards, because I would have kept them the whole time. Be like buying a Coca-Cola stock. I could have bought a whole bunch of Mickey Mantles in high school when I gave my uncle the money, and I would have way more money, because I still don't touch that other money either. I might as well have it in cards, something I enjoy, and I'm realizing that. And that's something that I'm taking into the future with me. And I'm not into stocks, and I trade stocks and I buy stocks, but I sold a chunk this year, and I am going to invest that into cards at some point. And it's like one of those things that I'm like finally getting the confidence after seeing your charts and other people's charts, and not that I don't think this thing's gonna go straight up to the moon, no chance. But I'm okay with it hovering with inflation. Like the chart I showed, like I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna sell it, so it's safe for me, and it's enjoy the money as a card. And I think that a lot of people don't like that part of it. Like, you think it's money. Well, it is in a way. And one day I might sell all my cards one day, and I'm not going to be ashamed of that. And one day I might have a sale of everything just because it's exciting for me to like, what is this going to be worth one day when I'm 60 or something? I'm not going to die with all these cards. I'm either going to give them to my nephews, or I'm going to sell them at one point and keep certain ones until I die. Couple. But one day I'm going to sell them all. I'm not just going to die with all of them. I'm not like everybody else. I'm gonna sell them or give them to my nieces and nephews. A point I kind of wanted to add.
And I appreciate John Mangini, whether we agree or not, none of us know, right? But I appreciate him throwing that out there, because here's the difference, between the vintage community and like when I started, I like to watch a little of everything, especially back when I first tuned back into sports cards. I was watching Sports Card Investor. I was listening to different podcasts, vintage stuff, but one of the things during this peak, right, while it was up there going up, you didn't hear anything, at least I didn't, about be careful or just look at this chart. Look where we are compared to. You heard nothing. It was all going to keep going up and buy that. But you got to also think about the people. Like we're a little more experienced, and you definitely are with vintage and buying and prices and so forth. But you got to also think about, what about the new person who's, let's say, our age and didn't come in during the boom, right? But now they're just coming in, right? Because there's people coming in all the time back to the hobby that are our age bracket and so forth. What about the person who comes back and they're just coming in, right? They're coming in and the prices are high, right? Yes, they could go up, but it's nice, I think, for a guy like John to throw a warning out there that, like, look, just be careful, keep an eye on things, be smart, because you never know. We all hope that things are always going to go up, and to Dr. Beckett's point, I think there could be some volatility even in vintage. For someone who's coming in right now who sees Ozzie Smith sell for $15,000 a PSA 9, the stakes are a lot higher now than they used to be. People come in with money and they have good intentions, and even with vintage, that's all. I think it's nice to see some caution that you didn't see in the other parts of the market.
I agree 100%. It's great to give the warning signs, but you know what? If you're like follow like someone like me, you're like, dude, you don't need to buy $1,000 card. Just buy a Peters card. Like, there's no risk in that. Like Dr. Beckett says, there's no risk in spending $5 on a baseball card or $1 in a dollar box. There's no risk on spending $25 on a PSA 4. There's no risk there. It's collecting, and if it goes up in value, it's just a bonus, and it's fun. It's exciting. The whole like buy a PSA 9, like people coming in now, man, I hope they're not just going out and buying PSA 8s and 9s, because that's crazy.
Yep.
It's different because we have collections that were so old that people see our cards and they're like, man, that thing's $500. You're like, well, it cost like $50 back then. So it is definitely different for new people, and it is good that John puts a warning out there, and it's been fun to listen to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you got like I collect some Tom Brady too. That's again, whether his prices go up or down, he's my favorite football player. I grew up, New England Patriots fan, so it's just someone I want to collect with football. But so I keep an eye on, like, there's some pretty big Tom Brady collectors and dealers on social media and like Instagram and so forth. And I noticed at least one or two of them, like just recently, it was always it was either always like football, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. It was like Patrick Mahomes, and that was their lane. Like they would buy and sell, and they talk about the market for them. And I'm noticing at least a couple of them are now buying Mickey Mantle cards. So like this is part of the reason why I want to talk about this. And these are good guys. Like they're not like buffoons or anything, like goof guys. These are like smart guys, and they're coming into the vintage baseball market, and they got some good money they're putting behind it. So, it's, you see things like that. And look, I'd never tell anyone to shy away from buying Mickey Mantle cards if you can afford it. But I think a lot of them are coming in with they're hearing this. They're hearing Mickey Mantle never goes down. Mickey Mantle, he's he's a safe play, and he is, right. But like, there's going to be swings.
Spend $100. Buy
Yeah,
two.
but they're not going to do that. They're going to come in and they're buying 56 tops, SGC 6s and 7s, and
yeah, it's crazy.
They're throwing big money around. And look, everyone makes their own decisions, but that does what other people do definitely affect collectors, like vintage collectors too. Like those, it causes prices to spike, and then they'll panic sell, and then they'll shoot down. So the point is, there's tools out there. There's ways where you can, if you're newer and you want to get into vintage, like you said, you start small, don't go crazy, get a feel for it, but use the data out there, use the card ladders and whatever you want to use to look at the history, and take your time.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm having a blast. I just hope everyone knows that this is all for fun, and this is collecting, and these are all opinions, and they just don't take anything that I say for anything other than just have fun with this.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it's a fun thing. I like to keep an eye on prices and the market, and so I just find it interesting, and totally. Share some information. Like I showed, I use Card Ladder, so I want to throw it out there if anyone happens to watch this. And Card Ladder probably doesn't want me doing this, but if anyone wants me to pull any data or past sales or charts, I'm more than willing. Save you the $12 a month or whatever it is. Why pay it when I'm happy to share any information you'd want, so that when you make these purchases, you could, have hard data behind it and make sure you're paying the right prices and not getting taken advantage of and so forth. So awesome. Anyone wants to hit me up, let me know. You got any new videos coming out? What do you got planned?
Yeah, new one. It's going to be kind of a non-baseball card one. I also have a grill card to show, but I'm going to show my wall off, my collection wall. I have every little cubby is a different part of my life, and it's all my toys that I grew up with playing, and they're actually my toys and my wife's toys. And I also have memory boxes in there with like family members that have passed away, and I have stuff from them up there. So I'm going to do an episode on that. Basically, my collecting life, my whole wall is my collecting life. So a lot of people might not tune in, but I don't care. It's for my like future self or family, and I'm having so much fun with this. It's just like I have my own TV show now. This is great. Yeah. And I get to be on your TV show. This is just like the coolest thing in the world.
I never would have had a chance to talk to you. I was on the phone today with James Elite Hunters. No way. I told him today, I was like, that's the whole reason I'm on YouTube, is to be able to talk and do these. So pricing is not what we do it for. We like to touch in on it, but
totally fun. It's totally fun, and it's exciting. And yeah, dude, you're going to the national, so we're gonna roommate together, get a few other guys, and we're gonna do it. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm in, and I will definitely be watching that next video. I love all your videos. Thanks. But yeah, Dylan, hey, thanks, man, and I hope we can do something again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Shaka. Later, Adam.